Good evening. Welcome to the program. I'm Leland, Vittert. Tonight, the world's richest man is bowing to the knee of China for the almighty yuan. And whether you watch Yellowstone or not, we're going to explain how a Western drama became America's most popular TV show and what that fact says about the country and the state of Hollywood. But first, in America tonight, all eyes are on New York City's new mayor. You might call him Democrats' Glenn Youngkin. Both Youngkin and Eric Adams went back to the roots of their party and promised to take care of the majority of their voters, not pander to a fringe. Here's Adams explaining his goals.
The theme of my first 100 days is GSD, get stuff done. And I have assembled a government that will solve New York's problems because it understands New Yorkers.
What's surprising is the things he wants to get done. Many are the opposite of his progressive predecessors, Bill de Blasio's agenda. Adams promises to support police and take on gangs, but says that doesn't mean he will protect bad cops, even though he once was a cop. He says the city must learn to live with COVID and avoid the de Blasio lockdowns, but says vaccine mandates will stay, including a possible booster mandate. He's taking on the teachers' unions to keep schools open. None of this would be all that surprising, except Eric Adams is a Democrat in a city where the current progressive movement first dug in. It's where Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the original member of the squad, primaried a powerful Democrat from the left. Progressives concerned as Eric Adams takes the helm as New York's mayor, writes the UK Guardian. And many moderate Democrats say that concern by progressives is a good thing. Hey, fellow Democrats, writes Philip Levine, follow Eric Adams' lead to avoid a 2022 wipeout. Levine gives a litmus test for Democrats hoping to buck the red wave on the horizon for the 2022 midterms. 1, do you support well-funded professional police departments? 2, are you in favor of securing and defending the integrity of our borders with reasonable restrictions on migration and immigration? Do you agree that only U.S. citizens should be allowed to vote in U.S. elections, including state and local ones? Question number 4, for Democrats, are you in favor of allowing parental participation in school curriculum, and are you against critical race theory in classrooms? Point number 5 from Philip Levine, also remember, he is a Democrat. Do you disavow socialism and accept that America's economic success is based on its capitalistic system? The man himself joins us, not Eric Adams, but Mayor Philip Levine, former mayor of Miami Beach from his house in Florida. Mayor, good to see you. We appreciate you being with us. As I look at the last one, do you disavow socialism and accept that America's economic success is based on its capitalistic system? It's stunning that you have to write that Democrats should have to say that.
Well, Leland, I think a majority of Democrats actually feel that. But once again, it's that small progressive win that's actually getting all the media attention. So I think why not put it out there? Just say you're in favor of these 5 points. And that's a great roadmap for the Democrats to have super, super big success going forward. And that's what that op-ed was really about, Leland.
Yeah, no, it was a fascinating piece, the New York Post. I would suggest anybody look it up right after the show. Don't during the show, it'll distract you. But you talk about the progressive left that still has this stranglehold on so much of the Democratic Party. This from Politico today. The left is already looking to 2024. Some want to see a Biden primary challenge. Quote, the fact that any primary challenge at all is now openly being discussed demonstrates how disappointed some progressives are about Biden's presidency. It's also a reflection of Biden's weakness in the polls and his advanced age. As a student of history and political history, you'll remember last time a sitting Democrat was primaried, Jimmy Carter in 1980, that didn't work out so well.
Well, it's funny you brought up Jimmy Carter, because I've been saying for a long time, we're living in the Jimmy Carter years right now. We have an issue with Iran. We have stagflation. We have crime and chaos in our cities. So we are living in the 1970s. The question for the Democrats is this. Do you want to go through Mondale and then Dukakis before you get to the successful Clintonian policies that put the Democrats back in the White House and out of the wilderness? Or do you want to take all these years playing around, or do you want to learn from our history? And I say we learn from our history, and we realize that we need to go to the center that we need to be pro-business, we need to be pro-people. And Eric Adams is a phenomenal model, and he ran in a primary with the most progressive possible, but he won because people wanted law and order and they want society to function. He is not right, he is not left, he is forward, and that's where the Democratic Party needs to be.
Yeah, I think there was a party actually in Israel called Kadima, which translates to forward, and they were quite successful at one point. You talk about going through the Mondale years and the wilderness, if you will, of the 1980s for the Democratic Party. But wasn't that necessary to sort of burn out, if you will, the Carter policies? Can that happen without those multiple searing losses?
Well, that's why I wrote this op-ed. And you know what? I got some calls from my Republican friends, and they said to me, Mayor, we hope to God your Democratic Party does not listen to your op-ed. We hope they do not listen at all, because God forbid they listen, you all may be able to actually get in power quicker and faster and not be out in the wilderness. So that's why I wrote the op-ed.
Yeah, you think about the congressional ballot right now, and this is preferred congressional party, GOP or Dems. GOP right now is ahead 0.8%, but the fact that this is even close just shows you what kind of red wave could be on the horizon. Is it too late for 2022 to adopt your proposals?
I don't think so. I think that if the Democrats could somehow come to their senses, understand that you have to know your customer. You know, it's a little bit like, do you want to be Blockbuster Video? Do you want to shove 8 tracks down everyone's throat when they don't want to buy or rent them anymore? We know what happened to Blockbuster Video. Let's not make the Democratic Party Blockbuster Video. So hopefully they're going to listen, change course, because the people are speaking loud and clear. And Eric Adams' success has been a big message to the party.
You know, it's interesting. In a way, Eric Adams, about COVID at least, sounds a lot like Donald Trump. Take a listen.
We must learn to live with COVID, adjust, and pivot at the right time.
When I say we're learning to live with it, we have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does.
Any truth to the comparison?
No, I don't think so. I'll tell you why. Mayor Adams talking about right now Omicron, which we know is not as deadly, doesn't require as much oxygen, hospitalization. And he's saying this is kind of the evolution of where this virus is going. So we need to be able to live with it. When President Trump was speaking of it that way, I think we had a very deadly situation on our hands, and we were losing a tremendous amount of people.
Real quick, and they're wrapping me in the control room, but I want to understand this. It seems so obvious when you point out your facts in your op-ed of why Democratic candidates should follow your vision here, if you will, your litmus test, the Levine litmus test, if you will. Why wouldn't they?
Well, I think because what happens is when you're in that echo chamber, when you're a progressive in a progressive district and you've been successful, somehow you think that you could win a state. We know one thing, progressives win districts, but centrists win states. And sometimes it takes a little bruising and a little losing to figure that out. Unfortunately, the way we're headed this year, it looks like we could have some unfortunate bruising and losing. And I'm trying to do everything I can to stop that.
Well, you've been ringing the alarm bells for a while, Mayor, and we're always happy to have you. Happy New Year to you and yours, and we'll be talking throughout the year.
Thank you, Leland.
Yeah, thank you. Speaking of President Trump, he famously said he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single supporter. He was largely proved correct in that statement, which begs the question of why Democrats think investigating the former president will somehow disqualify him in 2024. New York Attorney General Letitia James has issued a number of subpoenas today to former President Trump and his 2 eldest children, Ivanka and Don Jr. That happened earlier this month amid her civil probe into the Trump's organization's practices. But the 3 reportedly have refused to comply. Shocking. Let's take a minute to review all the Democratic district attorneys, attorney generals, and congressmen investigating President Trump, because as all of these investigations and the subpoenas come out, it can get a little confusing. The New York AG's office is also involved in the Manhattan District Attorney's criminal probe into the Trump organization's tax practices. This is the Democratic-led January 6th House Select Committee investigates Trump's actions during the Capitol riot. In Georgia, Fulton County District Attorney is now investigating whether Mr. Trump illegally interfered in the 2020 election. And Washington, D.C.'s District Attorney says his team is looking into to Mr. Trump's role in the January 6th attack. This comes amid a slew of civil lawsuits that the former president is already facing. Let's put aside the veracity of these investigations and look at what's motivating the investigators. We aren't mind readers, but you have to wonder if this poll showing a rematch today of the current and former president would yield a very different outcome has anything to do with it. In fact, Mr. Trump wins nationally by nearly 5 points. That's a turnaround of 9 points from the 2020 election. Dr. Lauren Wright, expert on polling, associate research scholar at Princeton University, is with us. Dan Palmer, conservative strategist and financier as well. Nice to see you both. Lauren, start with you. The fact that President Trump now beats Biden when he was never ahead in a head-to-head during the 2020 election says what?
Almost nothing this early in the election cycle, frankly. You know, once Trump announces a run, if he plans to do that, and he's in more of the media and he's out there and he's campaigning and there's a message and a lot of it is really controversial and everyone remembers what the end of his presidency was like, these numbers probably won't look that way. But I do think, you know, the reaction to a lot of failures in the Biden presidency is very real, and that makes Democrats weak. But just to add to that, with what you just said, with all the investigations of Trump, I can't believe that Republicans are still looking to Trump as their most viable option. They would do extraordinarily well to find a non-Trump candidate whose message is solely focused on what Democrats are doing wrong and appeal to the independents and moderate Republicans and some conservative Democrats that they need to win a national election.
Yeah, well, they may be wise to in your mind, but so far they are not. Trump dominates 2024 GOP. 54% of Republicans say they want President Trump as their pick for 2024.
But that's not a lot.
Okay.
You know, that's 50 to 60%. That's not overwhelming support within the party. That's pretty bad, actually.
Dan, you've been really adept at explaining the Trump phenomenon within the Republican Party. Does all these investigations make him stronger within the Republican Party, or are Trump supporters in the Republican Party always Trump supporters and those who don't really care?
I think the significance of the investigations would be similar to the pressure applied to General Flynn. If these investigators are able to put pressure on the children of Donald Trump in a way that would be persuasive for him to cut a deal and not run, and basically go quietly into the night, that they would be significant. But in terms of how it affects voters, I don't think it's really playing to persuade either base. You know, the Democratic base wants him strung up, and the Republican base sees it as a sort of desperate harassment. So I think Trump runs in 24. Really, there's only two threshold questions. One is, does he have the health to run? And secondly, whether or not this prosecution is going to, in some way, adversely affect his children that he dearly loves. So I think those are the only two things that stops him.
Yeah, the kid part of this is the wild card, and going after someone's kids is a special kind of mean, I guess, at some level. You know, Lauren, you think about it, President Trump, married 3 times, noted philanderer, said he won an election that he didn't, proudly has a casual relationship with the truth, said John McCain wasn't a hero, trashed Gold Star families. That largely didn't change opinions of him. And you think about it right now, 90+% of Democrats say they don't want Trump to win. If he's so weak as you suggest, wouldn't Democrats want nothing more than to face President Trump, a wounded President Trump?
Well, I think Democratic elites definitely probably would love nothing more than for him to run again, because in many ways, that's the only Republican candidate they know they can beat. This is a twice impeached president who lost in 2020 and lost control of the Senate because of 2 seats in Georgia, when he was basically encouraging people not to turn out to vote. So no, that's not their best bet. But yes, I'm sure there are Democratic strategists who are crossing their fingers and hoping he announces and that all of the craziness surrounding him takes the attention off of Joe Biden or Vice President Harris.
Well, certainly, there's a lot of media executives who also want nothing more than for Donald Trump to run again. Dan, I see you smile at that. Is there a scenario to your mind that Lauren's prediction plays out, or are we just back when Trump came down the golden elevator and everybody said not a chance for 1,000 reasons, and then he ended up being president?
I think the way American presidential politics work is candidates are self-selected. This is not somebody responding to a giant hue and cry. If he says he's running, he has a gargantuan advantage in just fundraising alone. I mean, right now, this year, the 2022 period is going to be about fundraising. DeSantis, who would be a rival, he's going to be busy with his own reelect. Anybody else who's a member of the former Trump administration, which would really complete nearly the entire alternate field to Trump, is not going to be willing to play whack-a-mole, at Trump's, advantage. So I think the only other person who sits in the wings, who's not a governor, not a member of the previous administration, would be Ted Cruz, who was the runner-up. In the old silk stocking Republican Party, there was a great deal of deference to the runner-up in the previous cycle. We saw that with McCain and Romney. But I don't see this is not the same Republican Party. No. So if Trump strides into the ring, he comes in with an enormous financial advantage, universal name recognition. On the other side, he's probably the single thing that unites the Democrat Party, other than possibly the issue of choice. These are the two lightning rod issues.
There's nobody more vote. Yeah, more vote. There's nobody who's more motivating to Democrats and to get out the vote than Donald Trump. We proved that in 2020. Hey, this is a great conversation. Lauren, good to see you. Dan, good to see you as well. Talk soon.
Happy New Year, Leland.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Leland.
In too many industries, a handful of giant companies dominate the market. And too often, they use their power to squeeze out smaller competitors and stifle new entrepreneurs.
That was President Biden today during a meeting with farmers and ranchers. He says more government regulation is the answer to inflation. His plan to lower your grocery bill includes a regulation of the meat industry and $1 billion of your taxpayer money, of which $375 million goes to independent meat producers, $275 million to processors, $100 million for inspectors, and $100 million for worker training. And it's needed, or some help is needed now more than ever. Prices for most meats are up double digits. Beef and veal, 20%, pork, 14%, chicken, 8.8%, seafood up 11%. Justin Tupper, vice president of the U.S. Cattlemen's Association, sells more than 100,000 cattle a year, was recently called a pillar in the ag community by Livestock News, joins us now. All right, Justin, is the president right that ranchers and meat processors and everybody else are just getting rich on the backs of American consumers?
Well, definitely is. I think he's bringing light to a real big problem. You showed 20% increases in beef, and we're not seeing that at the producer level. So there's only one other place where it's getting holed up, and that's with the big four packers. And that's a big problem, as they bottleneck this industry and they take all the profits out of it. We get left holding the crumbs.
Let me ask it this way. You say you control the meat market of the big four, 55 to 85%. Their net income is up 500%. You say you are getting the crumbs. So even somebody who sells 100,000 cattle a year, you don't see an extra dime.
Yeah, the meat prices have been exponentially high. We've seen them at record high prices in the grocery store. The box beef prices that the packer charges the grocery stores have been way up. But what they've paid to the average producer has been at par or below for much of 2021. And that's something that we've got to look forward to change. So we definitely are encouraged that President Biden has taken this as an issue. And we think we definitely need a referee in the meatpacking industry.
You think about all the things that he wants to do, $100 million for inspectors, $100 million for worker training, $270 million to processors and some to independent meat producers. Is that going to actually solve anything?
Well, I think it's nice to think about that, and I definitely think we need inspectors. That's a big problem that we hear about a lot. And worker training, we know with COVID, it's been tough to get workers, but I think bigger than that is we've got to get in there and figure out what the competition problems are. And the big four packers don't have to compete for our livestock. And then on the other side, as they sell it out the back door, they have all the controlling contracts with the Walmarts, the Safeways, and the big packers have all of those contracts lined up. So when you get an independent producer trying to sell meat to one of those places, they can't get into that marketplace. So I think we've got to fix both sides of the door.
There's this idea, obviously, that regulation can fix a lot. Larry Summers, advisor to President Obama, and then obviously in the cabinet for President Clinton, says if the administration wants to push some prices down, perhaps it can stop advising the already overeager antitrust authorities to pursue cases like meat packing, where they have very little chance to win. Your response?
Yeah, I think, that's a tough road to hoe. And we understand we don't want more regulation. We think that's tough. But when you have only four packers controlling the industry on both sides, as far as selling the meat to the big grocery store chains and buying all the livestock, they're controlling all the buying power as it comes in to their processing plants. We've either got to have a better referee.
It's sort of the idea of breaking up AT&T, and conceivably you get more competition, something like that. Let me ask it this way. Do you feel in any way the Biden administration is sort of using you guys who are getting squeezed as a dog and pony show, for lack of a better term?
Well, this isn't our first political run. It doesn't matter if it's been Democrats or Republicans. We've heard some of this lip service before. We want some action here in the countryside. We really believe that we need some firm action and some definite changes if we're going to be able to be viable and keep our family farms and ranches in the business.
Hey, Justin, this was a great conversation. There's an added focus now on ranchers and farmers because of Yellowstone, the most popular TV show in the country. I can see a smile in recognition. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, and we'll be checking in with you.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
The NFL continues to have a crazy year, just a week away from the end of the regular season, but most of the drama is off the field instead of on, what that means for the league. Plus, the world's richest man and most influential man bows to China. Tesla's controversial new move, coming up next. We can now add Elon Musk to the long list of companies and billionaires who bow to the Chinese. The Tesla founder opened a car showroom in an area of China where the communist regime systematically tortures, kills, and imprisons Uyghurs and other minority groups. It's the worst genocide since World War II. This headline today from the Wall Street Journal: Tesla opens showroom in China's Xinjiang region. At the center of U.S. genocide allegations, maker of electric cars risked wading into a human rights dispute that has entangled Western companies. In fact, they don't risk it, they have. Here's the area we're talking about in the northwest region of the country. China is accused of using Uyghurs, among others, for forced labor and putting them in prison camps. Those are the lucky ones. Others are killed. Some are allegedly used for organ harvesting. Beijing says the allegations are just fabrications. Joining us now, Gordon Chang, author and analyst of U.S.-China relations, and Batya Ungar-Sargon, deputy opinion editor for Newsweek. Boy, Gordon, Xi Jinping, ahead of the Olympics, has got to be ready to invite Elon Musk as an honored guest.
I'm sure he must. I think what's going on here, though it's hard to tell, is that essentially Elon Musk wants to show that he is okay with what China's doing. He's showing his obedience to the Communist Party. And so therefore, he believes that he'll get commercial advantages with regard to Tesla or anything else. This is horrific. This is offensive. Americans look at this and just realize that this is against all of their notions of decency, because as you say, China's committing genocide, crimes against humanity, and other atrocities that are comparable to what the Third Reich did prior to the mass exterminations of 1941. This, in a word, is wrong.
Yeah, wrong might be an understatement. The next question would be why. Elon Musk's net worth was $100 million back in 2003. Now it's up to $297.6 billion if he were to be able to sell all of his Tesla stock. So, Baccia, you know, normally billionaires like to be seen for their good works and give away money like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. Why would Elon Musk put himself in this position?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for covering this, Leland. There's just so little attention paid to the genocide of the Uyghurs, and it is so unconscionable. I completely agree with you. You know, for Jews like us, this is something that really brings back the Holocaust. You see concentration camps, forced sterilization, people having their heads shaved before they're put on trains and disappeared. I mean, it's really atrocious, and nobody wants to talk about it. And then you have somebody like Elon Musk who walks around like some sort of renegade, going on Twitter, you know, joshing with politicians. You know, he has this sort of bad boy attitude in America, like a kind of renegade maverick. And then he goes to China and bends the knee and now builds a showroom in Xinjiang, literally in the shade of these concentration camps. It's so deplorable.
Right. And I guess, Gordon, is there really that much money to be made doing this?
I actually don't think so. I mean, he's opening up a showroom in Urumqi, which is the capital of Xinjiang. It's not known as a place where there's a lot of wealthy people, apart from maybe some Communist Party cadres. So I think that he is doing this to signal to Beijing that he is obedient to them. I mean, there's just, China has been doing this to a number of big companies. And I think that Elon Musk is trying to get ahead of this. But the problem is, eventually it's going to hit him in the United States, because people are going to look at this and they're going to start asking questions. Yeah. And although Tesla is big, it's not going to be the only electric car company in the United States. And I do hope that Americans start to impose costs on him for what is just, yeah, it is wrong. I don't know what other words you can use, but it's just awful.
Baccia, you know, any old rule in journalism, anytime you're comparing something to the Nazis or Hitler, you're losing. That said, the comparison here is very real to the 1930s, when there were American companies that still did business with the Nazis. It wasn't until really well into the 40s and into World War II when finally American companies kind of figured it out. We've never really seen a major U.S. company take a stand on principle. I know I'm hopeful that Gordon's right, but just from a cultural perspective, I've never seen a business take that kind of moral stand. Is there any reason to think Elon Musk is going to be the first one?
I don't think there is, but you know who's quietly taking a stand is Walmart, which took all products produced in Xinjiang off of its shelves and didn't make a big deal out of it. It just quietly did the right thing. And it's so funny that you have this normie company, Walmart, that gets a lot of flack, you know, doing the right thing quietly. And then some company like Tesla that's supposed to be on the cutting edge of everything, literally building a showroom in Xinjiang.
Yeah. As Gordon points out, building the showroom isn't much in terms of their business. It's huge in terms of the symbolism. Gordon, how important is this right before the Olympics?
Well, before the Olympics, Beijing does want legitimization. And so it is doing a number of things to burnish its image, because I think they're worried that the International Olympic Committee, for a number of reasons, might either pull or delay the Winter Olympics, which are supposed to start February 4th. So this is a very sensitive time for China. And we're seeing this in a number of different areas, especially in the lockdowns in Xi'an over COVID, because that's another issue that could derail the Olympics.
Yeah, the irony of the Olympics being canceled that Beijing needs for the legitimacy because of COVID would be so rich. We'll see what kind of payoff Musk gets from China. Gordon, Baccia, thank you both very much. We appreciate it. Admire you both for hanging out on this. Coming up, outrage over Twitter's new bans. Conservatives are calling to crack down on big tech, but perhaps it's not a great idea, those crackdowns. We're going to tell you why when we come back. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.